What's up, fam? Welcome back to another Pep Wednesday where I put a little pep in your step for your midweek blues. This week, I wanted to tackle the topic of social media. The question is, why do I need to be on social media? And is it worth my time? Social media can feel like a daunting place. It feels like you're in a crowded room and everybody's shouting. And you might ask yourself, how do I get heard over this crowd? How do I be seen? And then even if I was seen or heard, what do I then say? One of the big mistakes I made starting out in social media was to think of it as a secondary portfolio site. And though this can be true in many ways and you can use it as a secondary portfolio site, I don't think you're maximizing the potential of these platforms. You see, we are so fortunate that we live in a digital age. We are no longer restricted by the gatekeepers of the different industries. Social media levels the playing field and gives us access to large audiences. And because we now have access to these large global audiences, these platforms are perfect for marketing. Before we dive any deeper, I would love for us to relook at the word marketing. For many of us creatives, the word marketing is a dirty word because it brings to mind the door-to-door salesman or the online advertisement that is hard selling you their product and telling you how great they are. For many of us, it might even bring us the feeling that we're selling out. It feels like a self-serving act. This is why I would like to look at Seth Godin's definition of marketing from his book, This is Marketing. He says, marketing is the generous act of helping others become who they seek to become. It involves creating honest stories that resonate and spread. Marketers offer solutions, opportunities for humans to solve their problems and move forward. Seth's view of marketing completely changes the conversation. It moves from an act of self-serving to one of serving others. When we begin to use Seth Godin's framework on understanding marketing, we start to understand the potential of social media. Social platforms are designed to be social. It's in the name. It's all about serving and building a community. So there are 4 key steps that I like to take to maximize the potential of my social media. The first step is understanding my audience. Once I understand my audience, then I create content buckets so that I can best serve them. Once I've created my content, the next step is to connect with them. And the last is to be consistent. So let's dive into the first one. If social platforms are all about serving a community, we need to understand which community we're serving. So you need to start by asking yourself the question, who is my tribe? Who is my community? What problems do they have? And how can I help them solve their problems? Clarifying your audience and how you can serve them will then allow you to clarify the type of content you need to create to best serve them. So how do we figure out our audience? There are 2 ways that we can look at this. The first one is that we do market research. We create a persona of our ideal customer, and based on the data that we collect, we then have a demographic and a figure and a personality of the type of person that we're looking for. And once we understand that, that will then inform how we approach it. The second way that we can approach finding our audience is to clarify our vision or mission or our message. And if you have a really powerful message that you think will resonate, if you build your brand around that message, it will draw like-minded people who are interested in this message that you have. So for instance, for myself, I've built my social media presence around my why. And my why is to bring joy and encouragement in everything I do. And so every product, everything has this underlining message of joy or encouragement. And because of that, it has drawn a very specific type of audience that is interested in being encouraged or needs an uplift of joy through their week. Now that we've clarified our audience, we can move on to the second section, which is creating content buckets. So the reason why I call them content buckets is it's a way to strategically create content that hits a certain targets. And so there are 4 key targets that I have found really helpful and impactful in social media. So the first one is, what value can I bring to my audience? And so this might be sharing your expertise or content on a very specific topic that you are an expert in. The second one is, how do I allow my audience to get to know me better? This is the process of being known. As Blair Ann says, people buy from people they know, like, and trust. And so the more you can share about who you are and your motivation and why you do what you do, the more it's going to attract that audience to you and your personality. And the more they like you, the more they want to support you and build you up as you in turn build them up. The third question I ask myself is, how do I allow my audience to understand what services I provide? Now, this doesn't have to be done in a hard salesy way. What I like to do is share my process, share how I create the type of work that I create for other clients. By breaking down the problem that you solve and teaching the process behind it, you give your audience value, you show your expertise, and you demonstrate the service. The last question I ask myself is, how do I let people know about the products that I have? And again, this doesn't have to be salesy. What I like to do is teach about the process of how I produce something, talk them through the problem that this product will solve. And by sharing the story and the intention behind the product, rather than the product itself, I then can authentically allow my audience to gauge the value of whether or not that product is right for them. So now that you're creating content, the next step is to build connections. Now, this is a social platform, and the whole intention is to build relationships with the people that are interacting with your audience. If somebody drops you a comment, make sure you respond to it. If they send you a DM, send them a response. It's important to start building those relationships with these people because they are your audience, they are your tribe, they're interested in you, and that's why they're commenting on your stuff. The second thing is, because it is an interactive platform, it's important to interact with other people's pages, other people's events, other people's audiences that might be in alignment with your own. The more time you spend interacting with these other people that are either in your creative industry or are within your space that are relevant to the content you create, the algorithm is then going to reward your attention and interaction by showing your work to those same people. And the fact is, people will sell you better than any advertisement or product or service. If you are able to bring value to somebody else, they're going to share that with their friends, they're going to share that with their family, and this will then bring in warm leads that you can then convert into potential business. The last thing that you need to do is to be consistent. So now that you're creating valuable content, you need to continually show up. Your audience needs to be aware that when they turn up at your page, they are going to get what they were looking for. By being consistent and continually sharing your valuable content, this will build loyalty and people will want to continue to share what you have created. If you want to grow your influence, it begins by serving. So the more you serve, the greater your influence. And this is seen throughout history. You have people like Mahatma Gandhi, you have people like Mother Teresa, you have people like Oprah Winfrey. They all began by serving their communities, by giving freely. And in that process, the community lifted them up, their audience lifted them up to a place of greatness. So those are my top 4 tips to maximize your social media. Think of social media as a platform for marketing and building your audience. The idea of marketing is that you serve others and help them succeed by solving their problems. The 4 ways to build your presence on social media is: number 1, to know your audience. Number 2, create strategic content buckets that brings value to them. Number 3 is connect, so you build relationships. And number 4 is being consistent. Thank you all. That's it for this week. I hope you found this helpful and valuable. If you did, please do like and share and let me know in the comments. If you do have questions for me, either DM me or hit me up in the comments. That's it for now, and I'll see you in the next video.